Today we're going to continue with our study of Proverbs. We started, was it last week we started? Yes, last week. As I said last week, we will not be going through every single verse of Proverbs. The Proverbs isn't designed that way. Today we're going to finish up chapter 1, and then the rest of the chapters, that are leading up to the actual proverbial sayings, we're not going to be dealing with, but I'm going to just briefly mention them this morning. But this morning we're going to be in Proverbs Chapter 1, verse 8 through 33, and I will be reading from the English Standard Version. Hear, my son, your father's instruction, and forsake not your mother's teaching, for they are a graceful garland for your head and pendants for your neck. My son, if sinners entice you, do not consent. If they say, come with us, let us lie and wait for blood. Let us ambush the innocent without reason. Like Sheol, let us swallow them alive, and whole, like those who go down to the pit. We shall find all precious goods. We shall fill our houses with plunder. Throw in your lot among us. We will all have one purse. My son, do not walk in the way with them. Hold back your foot from their paths, for their feet run to evil, and they make haste to shed blood. For in vain is a net spread in the sight of any bird. But these men lie in wait for their own blood. They set an ambush for their own lives. Such are the ways of everyone who is greedy for unjust gain. It takes away the life of its possessors. Wisdom cries aloud in the street. In the market she raises her voice. At the head of the noisy streets she cries out. At the entrance of the city gates she speaks. How long, O simple ones, will you love being simple? How long will scoffers delight in scoffing and fools hate knowledge? If you return at my reproof, behold, I will pour out my spirit to you. I will make my words known to you. Because I have called and you refuse to listen, have stretched out my hand and no one has heeded, because you have ignored all my counsel and would have none of my reproof, I also will laugh at your calamity. I will mock when terror strikes you. When terror strikes you like a storm and your calamity comes like a whirlwind, when distress and anguish come upon you. Then they will call upon me, but I will not answer. They will seek me diligently, but will not find me. Because they hated knowledge and did not choose the fear of the Lord, would have none of my counsel and despised all my reproof, therefore they shall eat the fruit of their way and have their fill of their own devices. For the simple are killed by their turning away, and the complacency of fools destroys them. But whoever listens to me will dwell secure and will be at ease without dread of disaster. I was hoping we'd have more of our teenagers here today, but listen to this. Listen to your parents' instruction. There is nothing wiser for a young person to hear, especially if your parents are training you in the ways of godliness. Now, that doesn't mean that it's only teenagers and children who need to listen to what their parents have said. We don't have to still be living with our parents for what our parents have said to be instruction that we need to follow. We need to realize that the teaching that they gave us, if it was grounded in wisdom, is something that we should pay attention to all of our life, not just while we're growing up. Proverbs tells us here that abiding by wise instruction, abiding by our parents' instruction will be a garland to grace our head and a chain to adorn our neck. That's Olympic language. Like you get the crown and you get the gold medal around your neck. In other words, it is a prize for you. It is a choice that you've made, and that choice will produce for you actually reality, literally the crown of life, if we follow through. Then he goes on. This first sound teaching of wisdom. Beware of the enticement to do evil in order to obtain the things of this world. Verses 10 through 16, he talks about these guys grabbing another guy and say, hey, come along with us. We know this guy's got all this money. He's going to be traveling here and there. We're going to jump him. We're going to kill him. We're going to take all of his possessions. Just be one purse. We'll split it among us. Don't do it, the parents say. The lure of worldly things has caused people, many people, to do evil. What is it? The love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. When our minds are consumed with status or success, as the world sees status and success, most of the time we lose our moral compass. That status and success becomes our goal rather than godly living. And the example given here by Solomon is extreme by far, killing somebody so that we can get what they own. But it doesn't have to be extreme in order for us to surrender our values for worldly things. It can be as simple as cheating on our income taxes or lying in order to get a promotion at work or keeping silent in order to get a promotion at work. The outcome of this life, in vain is a net spread in the sight of any bird. I'll let you go home and think about that one. In vain is a net set in the sight of any bird, but these men lie in wait for their own blood. You know, how foolish, Solomon is saying. How foolish. Don't you know the trap has been set for you, and yet you're still walking right into it? They set an ambush for their own lives. Such are the ways of everyone who is greedy for unjust gain. In verse 20, wisdom becomes personified, takes on the image of a person, so to speak, even though wisdom itself isn't a person, but we'll find out who wisdom probably is. And he tells us that wisdom is always calling. It doesn't matter where we are. It doesn't matter who we are. It doesn't matter what we're doing. Wisdom is always calling. In the street, in public places, in public gatherings, in the courts, when you're all by yourself, in every area of life, wisdom wants to be heard. Wisdom yells to us. Unfortunately, in our society, most of our places of life are so busy and so noisy that we don't hear wisdom. We don't hear the still small voice of God. Although wisdom yells, and yells loudly, the activity of this world sort of drowns her out for most people. Wisdom yells, however, to the simple one who loves simple ways. Simple one. Life should be simple, right? That's not what he's talking about. He's talking to those who do not give any thought to their ways. They're naive. They simply do what comes without weighing any of their decisions on any scale of, is this good or evil, or is this wise or unwise? Is this prudent for me to do, or is this stupid for me to do? Wisdom yells to these simple ones and says, wake up. Stop living without thought. Stop living without purpose to your life. Stop following every whim that comes your way and live your life with purpose. God's purpose. Quit allowing everything around you to lead you. Start leading everything around you. To scoffers or mockers, wisdom cries out. They delight in mockery. These are people who love to mock or scorn those who've chosen the path of wisdom. Do we see that at all today? Yeah. Mockery of that which is right by those who choose to do that which is wrong. They see things as the world sees, and thus they cannot or they choose not to try to understand the way of the wise, God's way. Instead, they mock what they do not know. Instead of seeking knowledge, true knowledge and wisdom, they simply choose to mock. As we said last week, they delight in airing their own opinion. And then wisdom yells to those who hate knowledge, fools who hate knowledge. They hate wisdom. They hate understanding. The fool who hates knowledge is always right. And that's all that matters. It doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter what the facts are. It doesn't matter what's true. What I think, what I believe is all that matters. The fool is one, as we've said, who knows God's way and simply chooses to ignore it. They are consumed with self, pleasure, and self-gratification. Letting God into their life is simply unacceptable. That is the fool. Now, wisdom yells out to all these, but no one listens. They don't respond to the rebuke of wisdom, and if they did, wisdom would have shown them the better way to live, the best way to live, and even given his thoughts to them. Verse 23, if you turn at my reproof, behold, I will pour out my spirit to you. I will make my words known to you. You don't have to live as a fool. Listen to wisdom. Instead, though, they reject wisdom. They ignored wisdom's advice and the rebuke. Verse 24 and 25, because I called you and you refused to listen. I stretched out my hand and no one has heeded. You ignored all my counsel. You would have none of my reproof. Now, because of that, they will pay the consequences of their foolishness. It doesn't mean that wisdom punishes. It doesn't mean that because you choose to be fool and make foolish decisions, that you go outside of God's will and the decisions that you make, that God is actually punishing you. Now, don't get me wrong, he can, and he does, and he has. But most of the time, we suffer the natural consequences of our foolish choices. Teenagers want to go out drinking and driving. Consequence is you're probably going to kill somebody. You want to do all kinds of things, other things? The natural consequences of those things can and will most times destroy you. Rejecting wisdom leads to its own consequences when we choose not to abide by God's ways. 26 and 27. I also will laugh at your calamity. If you choose foolishness, calamity's coming. I will mock when terror strikes you. When terror strikes you like a storm and your calamity comes like a whirlwind, when distress and anguish come upon you. My life is just falling completely apart. Look at everything that's going on. Well, you made a lot of foolish decisions. Decisions that were against God's will for your life. Wisdom is going to laugh. I see this as sort of, I told you so, right? That's wisdom's laughter. I told you so. But then the fool, at this point, they've had enough and they're going to cry out to wisdom, please help me, please help me, please tell me, give me the right knowledge. And they said, no. Wisdom says, nope. Eat the fruit of your ways. 28 to 31. Then they will call upon me, but I will not answer. They will seek me diligently, but will not find me. They will seek me diligently, but will not find me. Listen. God's Spirit does not always pursue us. There is a time where the Spirit of God can give up. We don't want to go that far. We don't want to go that far. Here is wisdom. And wisdom says, I can't hear you. Because they hated knowledge, because they did not choose the fear of the Lord, they would have none of my counsel and despised all my reproof. Therefore they shall eat the fruit of their way and have their fill of their own devices. Verses 32 and 33 sort of summarize this whole section of Proverbs. For the simple are killed by their turning away, and the complacency of fools destroys them. But whoever listens to me will dwell secure and will be at ease without the dread of disaster. The waywardness of the simple will kill them. The simple, they are so easily deceived. And as they continue down that wrong path, the wayward path, the foolish path, they are leading to their own death. The complacency of fools will destroy them. Complacency. Here's complacency. It is a state or a condition of improper satisfaction of one's circumstances. It's to be satisfied with life the way it is because you think life is okay. But in reality, you have denied God all along the way. And to be complacent is to realize you have stopped hearing the voice of wisdom. You've made your own false assumptions about what your security is based on. And the time is coming when you will fall. It also implies a prosperity that people have without any regard for others around them. The complacent person thinks everything is okay, even though they've rejected God and his wisdom. Thus they too will be destroyed. The simple and the fools, they walk the path of folly, of foolishness. And the longer they walk, the less they can hear the call of wisdom. Their conscience becomes seared, and they want nothing to do with God. 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 14 says, "The man without the Spirit does not accept the things that come from the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness to him." Did you hear that? The man without the Spirit thinks that the things of God are foolish. That's how you can find a real fool. When one who has the truth before them calls that truth foolishness. He cannot understand them because they are spiritually discerned. A fool rejects God's wisdom because he knows better. A fool rejects God's wisdom because it seems foolish to them. Satan has so deceived the world that they really believe that true godly wisdom is foolish. Their fate will be death, eternal death. But the person who listens to wisdom will live in safety and security. Not safety produced by their own ability, but because of their reliance upon God. And it doesn't mean that nothing bad will ever happen to us. It just simply means that we don't count on anything of this world to be our security, our safety. We know that no matter what tomorrow holds, God holds tomorrow, and no matter what happens to us, God has promised he'll work it to our good, and he will conform us into the likeness of his Son. And they're also at ease. Not ease as far as, now I can just lay back and take life easy. I got everything provided for me. No, ease in that I'm confident of the situation and the relationship that I have with God. I'm not complacent. I have not built my life on things that don't matter, that aren't true. But my life is built on Jesus Christ. I don't have to constantly think, will I be found out? Will somebody find out who I really am? What I've really been doing? The one who chooses wisdom all the time doesn't have to worry about whether they told a lie or a truth. They're always telling the truth, right? They know they're right with God. They don't fear the disaster or calamity that will come to those who are not living according to wisdom. Proverbs Chapter 3, verse 25 and 26, "Do not be afraid of sudden terror or of the ruin of the wicked when it comes, for the Lord will be your confidence. and will keep your foot from being caught. Again, not that trouble will not come upon us, but with God on our side, who can be against us? In this book of Proverbs, Solomon lays before us the need to listen to wisdom. He implores us to stop, to just slow our lives down long enough to consider that all our choices matter. All choices matter. If we choose wisdom, God's way, we will live. If we choose to ignore God's way, then we will destroy ourselves. Life is full of choices. Every day throughout the world, God is calling to the masses in a multitude of ways. He's calling for mankind to turn to Him, to turn away from their selfish life, a life with no meaning, a life that will ultimately end in destruction. He offers them life. And we know that this life is in Jesus Christ and through Jesus Christ. In fact, many, and I might be in that train, I'm not real sure yet, but I'm there almost. Many believe that the personification of wisdom in Proverbs is actually referring to Jesus Himself. Listen to Proverbs Chapter 8, verse 22 through 26. This is talking about wisdom. The Lord possessed me at the beginning of His work, the first of His acts of old. Ages ago I was set up at the first, before the beginning of the earth. When there were no depths, I was brought forth. When there were no springs abounding with water, before the mountains had been shaped. Before the hills, I was brought forth. Before He had made the earth with its fields, or the first of the dust of the world. When He established the heavens, I was there. When He drew a circle on the face of the deep. When He made firm the skies above. When He established the fountains of the deep. When He assigned to the sea its limit, so that the waters might not transgress His command. When He marked out the foundations of the earth, then I was beside Him, like a master workman, and I was daily His delight, rejoicing before Him always, rejoicing in His inhabited world, and delighting in the children of man. Oh, now, O sons, listen to me. Blessed are those who keep my ways. Hear instruction and be wise, and do not neglect it. Blessed is the one who listens to me, watching daily at my gates, watching beside my doors. For whoever finds me finds life and obtains favor from the Lord. But he who fails to find me injures himself. All who hate me love death. In the next several chapters of Proverbs, many admonitions and warnings are going to be given. And the choice is still the same. Choose wisdom or suffer the consequences of being a fool. Following Jesus will give us knowledge and understanding. It will keep us from sexual immorality. It will enable us to walk securely. It will keep our feet on the path of righteousness. Following Jesus is better than silver or gold or precious jewels. Chapter 8, take my instruction instead of silver, and knowledge rather than choice gold, for wisdom is better than jewels, and all that you may desire cannot compare with her. You remember that chorus? Our culture today, listen to me, if you don't hear anything else today, I want you to hear this. Our culture today is a testimony of fools. Our culture today is a testimony of those who have rejected God and gone their own way. Proverbs 14:12, there is a way that seems right to a man, but its end is the way of death. Self-pleasure, self-exalting, sexual immorality, disregard for life, violence, lies, deceit, self-sufficiency, greed, and much, much more. They are all signs of a foolish culture, a culture that has chosen to turn its back on God. That's where we are. I was reading this week in my devotions in Psalms, Psalm chapter 12, verse 8. The wicked freely strut about when what is vile is honored among men. Isn't that a description of where we are? The wicked, they freely strut about when what is vile is held up as honored among men. What is vile is being honored. Folks, I'm going to tell you, you cannot have a man who's pretending to be a woman get an achievement such as a 4-star admiral and claim to be the first woman ever to receive it and not think to yourself, what is wrong with our world? We have rejected God. We've rejected common sense. And evil is strutting. Every day, folly, which is the opposite of wisdom, shouts aloud for us to follow her ways. But wisdom also cries out to us. We must be those who choose wisdom, God's way. Don't be deceived, though. Wisdom is not choosing to think a certain way. Wisdom is not choosing to have certain beliefs. Following Jesus Christ is not simply knowing your Bible and giving God an hour or two a week. Wisdom is living according to God's standard. Wisdom is following Jesus by obeying him. Satan knows that Jesus Christ lived a perfect life. Satan knows that Jesus Christ died on the cross. Satan knows beyond a shadow of a doubt that Jesus rose on the third day. And Satan knows Jesus is coming again. Is Satan saved? Don't deceive yourself. Too many who call themselves Christians today are living as fools. We know the right answers. We know what pleases God, but we choose to walk the path of a fool. James tells us, do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourself. Do what it says. And Jesus said, if you love me, you will obey me. We are fools. We are fools if we hear the word and don't do what it says. We are fools if we think we love Jesus but don't seek to obey him. That's the very definition of a fool, folks. One who knows the right thing to do and chooses not to do it. None of us makes the right choice all the time, right? We're all foolish in some way. That's why we need a Savior. That's why Jesus died for us. But if we've received God's salvation through Jesus Christ, our hearts will be open to the Spirit's rebuke. We will desire more than anything to please our Heavenly Father. We will not actively pursue our self-gratification. We will not continue to actively cultivate thinking or behavior that is opposed to God. To fear God is the beginning of wisdom. And to fear God, the first thing we do is die to self. We can no longer be God if we truly fear the one true living God. It is the fundamental choice of life. God's way or the world's way. I always want to say God's way or the highway, but God's way or the world's way. That's the fundamental choice of every decision we make. And it is the ultimate choice of your life. Every day in everything we do, it is my desire that we all choose God's way. Let us side with God, regardless of how loud folly and this foolish world scream at us. If given the choice of all the world has to offer, or Jesus, would you choose Jesus? I choose Jesus today. I choose Jesus, and I pray you do too. Let's stand and sing that song. I'd rather have Jesus.